Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. Sorry, I still see some people joining, so let's wait just a few seconds, make sure that everyone is with us before we start. And welcome to this, at least on where I am, very hot July day. It's a very nice weather outside. Okay,
Yeah,
I see yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I'm going to say much better to be outside today than inside, but well, let's
Well,
get
I
this
hope,
get
I
this
hope,
done and get
uh,
out. Yeah.
I hope it's worth it. I'm sure it will. Okay, so I think we have everyone and we're going to get started. Thank you so much for joining today. My name is Maria Fort from Clockworx, and I'm joined today by Christopher Carrick, our CEO. And today we're going to be talking about how small operational fixes often become the starting point for much bigger transformation projects. And over the last year, we've spoken with a number of consultants and software partners and manufacturing organizations and across a range of different industries, right? And we've noticed a consistent trend within these conversations that companies still want to improve operations. They still want better visibility and better planning. But the way they achieve this has changed. So rather than launching into large transformation programs, they are starting with smaller initiatives that deliver value quickly and with minimal disruption. Today, we will share what we are seeing in the market, the approaches that are proving to be successful, and a real example of how one targeted operational improvement delivered value within just 3 months in one of our partner organizations. So if you have any questions along the way, please don't forget to drop them in the Q&A section, and we will cover them in the end. Chris, I want to get started and I want to ask you a question. Why are so many operational improvement projects becoming harder to get approved?
I think that's because people don't necessarily take the right approach to them and because some of the logistical challenges. We find that the first step in any project is to get help from somebody who can be objective. Our partners are generally very good at identifying bottlenecks and suggesting improvements. The challenge after that is often that the proposed solutions are either too large or too expensive for an organization to be able to implement. They often involve replacing systems, changing established processes, lengthy implementations, and significant investment. Decision makers have become more cautious. They're still investing, but they look for projects that deliver value cheaper, faster, with less risk and less disruption to the business.
Okay, makes sense. So when companies identify operational issues, what do they usually try first?
Well, most organizations already have major systems in place. They have ERP, they have CRM, maybe they have an MIS, they have planning tools. The challenge is that those systems don't always support the day-to-day work that people do. So that what usually happens is that companies try to solve those operational issues with spreadsheets, mobile apps, emails, chat, standalone tools. Each one helps with a specific problem, but over time they create more silos, more management overhead, less visibility across the entire process. So instead of simplifying operations, they often make workflows more complex.
Makes sense. So, and if those approaches don't solve the problem, then what actually works?
Well, what we found is that most successful projects don't try to accomplish too much too quickly. They solve one operational issue at a time using software that can be adapted easily to solve a broad range of workflow challenges. They build on top of systems that they're already working with. They connect people and processes to automate and create visibility where needed. Because the scope is focused, these projects are quick to implement, deliver measurable value, and carry much, much less risk. And solving the first issue creates momentum that leads to the next. That's how small operational fixes become broader transformation programs.
That makes sense. So, to support what we've been talking about, we have a customer example that's going to bring that to life. But before we jump into that and show you how the system looks, Chris, would you like to walk everyone through the situation and the specific example before we do that?
Sure, I'd love to talk about projects that we've helped our customers with. So in this case, the customer already had Salesforce for CRM, Epicor for ERP, so the right technology was in place. The challenge wasn't the systems themselves, it was how the systems interacted with each other and how people needed to interact with these systems. Managing customer orders required a lot of manual coordination. Teams were relying on emails, chat, spreadsheets, meetings, phone calls, just to keep things moving. Everyone knew the process was inefficient, but replacing the core systems simply wasn't necessary. Uh, Instead, we took a different approach. In just 3 months, we connected the existing Salesforce and Epicor environment, introduced a workflow layer that gave everyone a single place to manage their work, track progress, collaborate, and identify issues much earlier. Nothing was replaced, nothing was re-engineered. We simply filled the operational gaps that existed between the systems.
Thank you so much for that overview. And I'm now going to share my screen and to show you this example that Chris is just talking about. I hope you should be able to see it now, but Chris, let me know if that's not the case.
I can see.
uh, Perfect. So I guess everyone can see then. And what you're seeing here in this example is an order coming in from a customer, right? So, and how do we manage that order within the system? But I really want to emphasize here that the same approach that we will follow for this order could apply to any kind of process within any organization. So it could be a healthcare workflow, it can be a reporting process, a document generation workflow. So the point is not so much about the domain. The point is how fast can we shape the system around your process? And of course, if needed, we can also fill in the gaps in your organization. So for example, let's say you have an ERP already and that ERP handles an order entry and parts availability, but you don't have a proper approval step in your warehousing process. What we can do is that we can pull the relevant information straight from the ERP, kick off an approval workflow, and then notify accounting once it's approved and tell the ERP the goods are ready to use. So instead of taking years to deliver this project, it just took a couple of months, right? So we are streamlining the operations within any kind of organization. So focusing on the order that you are seeing now here, as you can see, this is an order where all the information is consolidated in one place. You have all the customer information, product information. You have here different analytics that we're going to cover in a bit. We even have different deliverables related to the main order. So you can track things like are being, for example, ordered to different suppliers or being completed by different departments, all within the same place. But highlighting here that things are not just being consolidated, everything is fully configurable as well. So every field that you see here can be swapped, can be added, can be removed, and we have already a whole library of fields ready to be dropped into place quickly. So it's not so much about creating a new feature or writing code. We can do that, of course, but we can just uh, take what we have already, tweak the configuration, and make these changes in seconds. And this also applies to who sees what. So every user within the system has a role, and that role itself is also highly configurable. So we can determine exactly which blocks of information appear for that person. So someone only sees what's relevant to their job. So it's the same system, but shaped around each role and configured in a fraction of seconds, in a fraction of the time that would take to build it from scratch. Chris, do you want to add anything here before I move forward?
Yeah, I think it's worth adding that we're very different to a application builder environment because we configure so much. It's very easy and very quick to adapt. Um, the blocks you talk about, when you turn them on and off for a particular user or for a particular application or a particular workflow, the system adapts automatically and creates a view for the customer. So you don't have to generate those views yourself or build them in code. Every menu is configurable. Um, and we have a number of predefined entities within the system for handling most things, and those come with a set of core fields that are always used. But then, as you've stated, our users can add additional information to any of those at any time to extend what they do. Likewise, we extend the system using plugins. For example, we have a finance plugin that does transaction management, transaction processing, financial consolidation and generates reports on any of the projects that that plugin is enabled for. And so this allows us to configure a system that is specifically tuned to a customer's needs. We don't overburden them with features or functionality to keep things simple, straightforward, and easy to use. Back to you.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for that overview. And I want to now focus, I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and you can see here that we are adding here an attachment to this order. I'm going to open it. This is just an example file. But the idea here is that you can actually add the documents directly to the workflow. So instead of going, it's all about the consolidation that we've been talking. Instead of going to a different application or a different tool, a different folder, you have them in the workflow. And you also can interact with them here. You can leave comments for any user, and users can interact with the document. And then everything is saved within this specific place. So it has a context and it's easy to find. So it's about speeding up how people actually work within the organization and making everyone's life a lot easier. So I'm going to close this document here. And as you can see, we are also tracking some analytics. And in this case, we are checking here how much time was spent per stage on this specific task. But again, this is fully configurable. So you can actually decide what you want to see, decide what you want to prioritize in these analytics. For example, we can show you a machine downtime, and then you can decide what kind of job to prioritize based on that machine downtime. So we can configure an analytic right in here that surfaces exactly what you need to see when you need to see it. So it's not like a fixed report. It's built around the actual decisions that you need to make. And the system itself also supports real-time alerts and escalation rules. So for example, if there happens to be a change in status or delivery date, the system will notify the right individual within the organization, and they're going to be pulled in early so they know what they need to do. They are kept informed every single step of the way, right? Now, as you can see here, we also have a button here. In this case, it says report problem. And these kinds of buttons can be used across the system to trigger really any kind of action, either within the system or with external applications. So by configuring this button, I can trigger, for example, an action and pull and push information from an ERP or a CRM, or it can be generating a new task or sending a notification to a stakeholder within the organization. Now, in this specific case, the report problem button, if I click here and let's say that I came across a problem when trying to complete this task as a user, I have here a set of instructions on how to issue a report. I can leave here my comments, and then I can assign this to the maintenance department. I have here a priority that I can set. And when I click update, the system will generate a ticket to the maintenance team and will notify them that there's work that needs to be done, and they need to look into this with high priority, right? But this can be configured to any kind of process. So tomorrow it could be triggering another workflow, another application to complete a specific task. So this is the kind of flexibility we are talking about. And of course, configuring a button like this, it takes seconds. So that's how long it takes us essentially to integrate with different systems, seconds. Chris, do you want to add anything else here before I move forward?
Yeah, sure. I think it's important to reiterate that any kind of action is possible. And as you stated, that might be an action that submits information to another application, or it might be something that we handle locally within Clockworx. But user-initiated actions aren't the only type that we can handle. There's an automation mechanism that sits behind the buttons that can also watch for particular events based on a scheduled time, information coming in, changes to records in any part of the system. We can trigger an automation to run that that might move information in from another application or transfer information from one application to another or adjust some of the data within the system. So we have an extremely comprehensive automation mechanism built into the system that allows a lot of things to occur in the background without user intervention. Back to you.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks so much for that addition. And okay, so let's say I'm a user and I'm now ready to start working on this task, right? And if I scroll down here, you can see that we have some details about what needs to be done and about what this task is about. But we also have an AI generated summary. So the system actually is able to review everything that is relevant to this task. Either is documentation or history of chat conversations or email messages relevant to this specific task, and can consolidate that information here and also pull any relevant documentation specific to this task. So the user doesn't have to go around and look for information elsewhere. It's here, it's easy to find. And now I can say, okay, I'm ready to start this. And I'm gonna start here, click start the task. And as you can see, once this starts, we're going to have here a step-by-step guide for this user. So we have documentation for each step of the way and information for this user to work on this task, right? So you don't have to go back and forward. You don't have to go look for information. It's here and is ready to be used. And let's say that I need additional documentation or additional information about this. I can come here to our AI and directly ask, for example, about documentation for pumps. And it gives me whatever the system has here ready to go. Obviously, this is a demo system, so it's not a huge overview, but hopefully in a live system would have a lot more information ready to be used. And just by a simple prompt, within seconds, it can give you that information. Chris, do you want anything else before I move to the end user configuration?
Yeah, sure. I think it's important to highlight some of the information that you see here on the screen. For example, on the right-hand side, you see a clock. Now, we use clocks to help people understand how long it should take them to accomplish a task. And what you're seeing here is a manual task that's been initiated within a process within the system. Clockworx excels at managing both automated and human tasks by, as Maria says, providing the information that people need. But the clock is all about making somebody aware of how long it should take to complete a particular operation and escalating if something should take longer than it should. Similarly, we have stats that we keep on how long it takes to do everything within the system. And if you're a manager, you can access those stats using a widget in the status control, and it shows analytics on how long it takes to conduct each part of a particular process. And this, of course, helps provide valuable information when it comes time to tune the process or find out where the bottlenecks are. Maria, back to you.
Thank you so much. And I think, up until now, we talked a lot about how we can configure the system for you. But I also want to talk about how the user themselves can configure the system to fit what they need to see. And I'm going to switch now to a different window that's showing here a dashboard. Again, this is all fully configurable, everything that you see here. But it can also be configured by the user, as I said, if of course they have the enough permission, if that role has enough permission to configure the system and this page here. So there's many ways you can do that. So for example, here we are filtering open orders, right, that we need to work on. But if I click here on this little pencil, you can see that I can add a number of filters to this and drill into the data. I have here status, and I have different kinds of activity types, list options. So really, there's endless possibilities here for the user to drill down into the data and have the information ready. And of course, you can also change this view by clicking here, Customize Page. And by clicking here, you will see that there's a number of modules and widgets to select from. So we have here lists, maps, different kinds of charts, project management tools like Scrum and Kanban. So really the possibilities are endless, not just for this user, for example, that wants to see the orders, but if you are a project manager to see a Kanban dashboard or to track, for example, machine performance by drilling into machine data, for example. So really, there's a lot of possibility here by giving the user the ability to configure the system to fit what they need to see. Chris, do you want to add anything else here?
Sure. Further to the dashboard itself, on the overview page, maybe you could expand the project overview page for a minute.
Which one? Sorry.
On the right-hand side, if you could just expand
Yeah.
the side panel.
Yeah.
You can see we've got a number of stats that relate to the project as a whole. Now, these, like everything else, are entirely configurable. And so depending on what it is you're trying to accomplish within the project, we can show different kinds of overview stats. Likewise, as you saw, we can easily add maps, we can add lists, reports, summaries, trend graphs, pie charts, Gantt charts, calendars, chat summaries, advanced KPIs, as you're seeing here. And all of them allow you to drill into the information that sits behind them and also configure on and off particular characteristics of the graph so that you can do what-if analysis and comparisons. In fact, all of our dashboards have the ability to take parameters that affect every widget within the dashboard to show you what-if scenarios or show you specific information for specific situations. Now, although we have a lot of control over the dashboards and users can configure their own dashboards, generally the approach we take is we configure views for specific roles within the system. And we don't allow people to adjust them. But where somebody is experienced and has the knowledge and expertise to adjust their own dashboards, we can quite easily turn on a permission within their role that allows them to make those changes. Back to you, Maria.
Thank you so much, Chris. And I think this gave you a pretty good sense of what the system looks like and what it can do. And I think now it would be a great time for us to summarize what we have seen today. And I think there's no better person to do that than Chris. So over to you, Chris, for a summary of what we've seen today. And then we can jump into our Q&A section of the webinar, as I can see some questions already popping up. Chris, over to you.
Great. Thanks very much. Look, I think the main message today is that projects are getting approved, but they're not necessarily the biggest projects. So it's important to have a way to approach projects in a stepwise way, a way to introduce technology that allows you to solve problems very quickly, very cost effectively. We believe that the best approach in winning these deals is to start small with targeted improvements, not major transformations, to be able to move fast, deliver real value very, very quickly so people can see that there are improvements being made, and then to be able to extend and expand on what's been delivered so that that first win opens the door to a wider organizational transformation.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for the overview. I think it was a great summary of what we've covered today. And I now want to focus on some of the questions that we have here. I think the first one is a really key one, which is, are clients reducing budgets or simply changing how they invest?
Well, from what we're seeing, it's more about how they're investing rather than how much they're investing. Companies still want and need improvement to their operations, but they're looking for lower risk initiatives that deliver measurable value very, very quickly, rather than committing to a large multi-year transformation program that involves many, many people, many departments, and involves huge budgets. They're favoring targeted projects with a clear business case and a faster return on investment.
Thank you. Another one here, another user is asking, which operational processes are usually the best place to start?
Well, that's an interesting question. We usually look for processes where people are already feeling the pain every day. Areas where things aren't working as well as they should, and people are frustrated by the process. This could be production planning, order management, procurement, permit management, project delivery, resource scheduling. The list is endless. If people are currently relying on spreadsheets, emails, chat streams or frequent meetings just to keep work moving, that's usually a good indication that there's opportunity to improve visibility, coordination, and automate some of those processes.
Okay, thank you so much, Chris. I think this one, the next one that I have here, I think is one that is pretty common that we get is how does Clockworx integrate with existing ERPs or MES systems?
Well, we don't take a one-size-fits-all approach because every customer environment is different. You can have the same ERP system, but different customers utilize it in different ways. They have different configurations. And so it's important to be able to adapt and configure the system to match the configuration of the existing ERP. So we can integrate to ERPs or any kind of system through the existing APIs. We can talk directly to the databases. We can talk through web services or any other interface that might exist within the software. The important point is that we're designing to work alongside the existing system and to leverage the capabilities that already exist within it rather than replace them. We use the data that's already there to create a connected operational layer across the entire business.
Okay, makes sense. I think we have time for a couple more questions. So I'm going to follow the next one, which is how long does a typical implementation take?
Well, that's really a piece of string question, isn't it?
Yeah, this could be a
There's,
whole webinar, right?
yeah, for sure. There's no way to tell, but where we identify a specific problem, and as noted before, a problem that's causing an operational difficulty, we can usually get in there, define the problem in detail, turn around, deliver a system in around 3 months. In fact, normally within the first months, we like to deliver a version of the system that we're actually going to use to manage the implementation. That way people become familiar with the system even before it's solving their business problem.
Thank you. I think that was a very good answer to this complicated question. And I think now we have time for one more. I'm going to close with this question unless I see any others coming in. But the question is, how do you ensure AI has access to reliable operational data?
Right, good question. Now, of course, everybody's transitioning to AI, and if anybody isn't, they certainly should be. It's an enormously beneficial tool to help in running workflows and helping with day-to-day operations. And we generally, when we implement projects, we don't start with AI. We start with defining the data that exists, or at least controlling or organizing the data that exists, and understanding the processes that are involved. I think anybody that tries to implement AI before they really understand how their business works and what data they have at hand are doomed to failure. And so by solving these small problems within the organization, we develop, first of all, the taxonomy, a data taxonomy, which describes what data, well, not only what data is there, but what it's used for and how people refer to it within the organization. And we start to break down the processes themselves. And once we have that, we have a rich set of context data that can be applied to AI to layer in AI. So in many ways, AI, effective AI, is a byproduct of the work that we do to help organize operational tasks.
Thank you. I think it made a lot of sense, Chris. And I hope everyone enjoyed. I think we are almost at the end of our time today. I don't see any other questions. So I think we're going to finish the session for today. But I want to thank Chris for his great overview about the system. I want to thank everyone that took the time to join us. And we are keen to continue the conversation with you. Happy to schedule a follow-up meeting and to show you even more of the system that we hadn't the time to cover everything today, of course. So please do reach out. And we are very, very happy to have you here. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Maria, for hosting today. It's been a great
Thank
job.
you.
Thank you.
Have a great week, everyone. Bye.
Bye for now.